Before you click away from this video, thinking you have heard it all before, please consider watching, as this is a story of teenagers finally realizing the far-reaching impacts of climate change. Since birth, my generation has heard the term climate change be thrown around quite frequently.
Let's talk about climate change.
Climate change.
Climate change.
We stand together united in our commitment to climate justice.
So let's define climate change, so we're all on the same page. Climate change is defined as the change in the world's weather, in particular the fact that Earth is getting warmer as a result of human activities, increasing the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. What this means is that scientists have been able to collect data about our climate to the help of modern machinery in space and on Earth, which tells us that the Earth is getting warmer at an alarming rate. Scientists believe that this rapid change in our climate is heavily influenced by modern human activities, namely burning fossil fuel to produce energy. Scientists have reached this conclusion after realizing that the greenhouse gases, which is produced as a byproduct by a lot of things we use in our daily lifestyles, these gases trap heat inside our atmosphere, which contribute to the cause greatly. According to NASA, since the late 19th century, Earth's temperature has risen by 1.62 degrees Fahrenheit, and unfortunately, it continues to rise. This problem needs to be dealt with immediately, and if we fail to do so, the polar ice caps will continue to melt, resulting in rising sea levels. The rising sea levels means that in the coming future, many countries will disappear, and at which point, we have officially lost our home due to our greed. If you're sitting there asking to yourself, what could you do? Then don't worry, because ISY has a solution.
So climate change is a real issue we're facing today, and we want ISY students to be fully aware of not only the issue, but also how they can impact that issue. One of the ways to do that is through the mangroves trip.
So when I first arrived at ISY about 3 years ago, one of the first things I started looking for was a way for us to offset our carbon output. And I wanted to find something globally so that we have a positive impact not only on our carbon footprint, but also with the local community. So when I started, it was basically just an internet search of what organizations could help us do that. And that's where I found Worldview International. Luckily they have an office in town in Yangon. And that's where I met Dr. Arne and Uli Mong, who was the project manager out there. And that's when I was introduced to the Climate Park, which allows us to not only have trips with students out there, but allows us to plant mangrove trees, which has a great impact on their environment and also on our carbon footprint. And as time went on, ISY adopted our strategic goals and themes, one of them being environmental consciousness, which this tied really nicely into. So as our relationship with WIF developed, we were able to go out to the park to do a survey to see if it was suitable for a Week Without Walls trip. I went out there with Mr. Sturmy and Ms. Powers and Mr. Zarley, and we determined that it would be a perfect spot for our students and for a WWW trip.
There were multiple reasons why I signed up for the mangroves trip, but I think the main one was because I wanted to help the environment and I wanted to help ISY achieve their goal of becoming carbon neutral, and actually do something for it, and not only do the planning and talk about it, but actually, be able to say, okay, I planted trees and I helped.
I learned a lot about different species of mangroves. We had this whole tour, and what kind of water mangroves need to grow in, how do they help the environment as a whole. And we also had different activities like snorkeling, where it was also fun, and at the same time we got to learn why mangroves are so important to sustain the flora and fauna, or the marine life, because we learned about corals and we saw fishes.
I thought it would maybe be interesting to have more grade levels than just one, the one that you're always with on the trip, and to have a smaller group of maximum 15 people, and just like camp in tents, because I think that's really cool at the beach instead of just your normal average class trips. So yeah, and it did not disappoint.
The mangrove trip for me personally heavily affected my perspective on the planet's ecosystem, how much we've harmed it, and the dangerous and dire situation we find ourselves to be in. Especially when about a dozen of us we planted 100 mangrove trees in a time span of 1 hour, and in the moment it seemed like a large amount of trees, but when you take a step back and reassess it, it seems a bit insignificant in the grand scheme of things, and it is a bit disheartening to know how much more we've got to go until we could achieve our goals of restoring the environment. But the mangrove trip also gave me hope as to how we could, bit by bit, come together as a collective entity and actively work towards achieving these goals. But more importantly, the mangrove trip was a reality check of sorts, wherein we have these debates and these rallies, but the truth is that the time to put in active work and effort into restoring the environment is now, and the mangrove trip taught me that.
The mangrove trip helped the ISY students play their part in the war against human greed. Our generation is a part of a war unlike any other, one that cannot be won by guns, missiles, or nuclear warheads. No, it can only be won by creativity, perseverance, and unity. And unfortunately, we do not have a lot of time. Our planet is slowly dying, and we as the new generation of this era need to work together to make sure that humanity can make it through the other side alive. At the end of the day, we will either come out of this victorious and unified, or destroyed for causing an imbalance to the intricate balance of the world. History is being written right now in front of all of us, and now your choice will determine if you are remembered or forgotten in the face of this global threat.